What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of your local Costco running out of baby oil. As always, I am your host, Zach Cronin, and today we are going to be talking about the New York Knicks and how they are legitimate championship contenders. This is not a unique thought that I'm having. The Knicks, even dating back to last season, showed legitimate signs of contending for a title. Maybe not that season, but certainly in the years upcoming, especially with the increased parity in the Eastern Conference. What sparked this video was I did one last year around this time that said, I'm sold on the New York Knicks. And what I talked about in that video was how the Knicks basically were a year or two away from contending for a title, and they are on that trajectory more so with the development of Jalen Brunson and, of course, with the offseason acquisition of Mikal Bridges. According to FanDuel, the Knicks have the third highest odds to win the title this year behind Boston, Oklahoma City, and they're tied with Philadelphia at plus 900. I think that they are very comfortably arguably the second best team in the Eastern Conference. I think that Boston, it's going to be their pennant to lose. They are returning more or less the exact same team, and they were, whatever word is better than dominant, that is the apt word that should be used to describe Boston. But I think that the Knicks and Philadelphia are comfortably in that second tier. I think they're going to perform better than Milwaukee. I'm not confident in the Bucks doing anything spectacular this upcoming season. I think that Giannis and Dame individually are going to be great, but that organization is turning into a train wreck. How they handled Adrian Griffin last year, and of course they were a sub 500 team with Doc Rivers as their coach. I just don't think that they're going to be able to bring a collective effort forth enough times to cement themselves as legitimate contenders. Things are going to get interesting at the top of the Eastern Conference. I talked about the 76ers this past summer. I think that their super team is well constructed. I think that Paul George fits in perfectly alongside Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. You do, of course, have the injury concerns of Embiid. Every team has those concerns, but they're more prominent with a player who is consistently hurt. So I think that both of these teams are built perfectly. I think that they are constructed well enough to give the Celtics a difficult time in repeating. The Knicks do have a notable flaw heading into this season, and this was a flaw that was apparent before the news surrounding Mitchell Robinson, and that is their depth at the center position. They lost Isaiah Hartenstein to Oklahoma City this summer, and beyond Robinson, they really don't have anyone that they can go to consistently. They have Precious Achua, who is a bit too undersized to play center consistently. They do also have Jericho Sims, but I don't know what I don't know if there is like a serious spot for him to play considerable minutes. They did also sign, what the fuck is his name? Ariel, what's it? Hook 40? I'm butchering that name. I apologize, but he's on a two-way deal. He's not going to see serious, meaningful minutes. And this problem becomes even more exacerbated with the news that Robinson is undergoing surgery and will be out until December, potentially even January, leaving them even thinner at their thinnest position. And with how the Eastern Conference, at least how the premier teams in the Eastern Conference are constructed, you need size to contend. When you look at Boston, you have to deal with Kristaps Porzingis. You're going to have to deal with Andre Drummond and with Joel Embiid. Even if you go up against Milwaukee, Giannis plays the five for them. You have Brook Lopez as well. This is a serious concern for the Knicks. I don't know what they're going to do throughout the season. However, I don't think that this is an issue that is going to really sink their hopes in any way. It's not going to pop the championship aspirations bubble that they have because the rest of the team is strong enough to compensate for that. You have the emergence of Jalen Brunson as the fifth or sixth best player in the NBA, a legitimate MVP candidate, someone who may very well see himself become a finalist for the award this season. You do also have the return of Julius Randle. I myself seem to like Julius Randle than people who are actually Knicks fans. I do see him getting trashed online quite a lot, and that is some of the criticism is fairly justified, particularly when it comes to shot selection and how he's a little bit more prone to turnovers. However, in the 46 games that he appeared with the Knicks last season, he cut down On his 3-point attempts, he was at around 5.3 per game, down from 8 the year before that one. However, his turnovers are still a little on the high side, averaged 3.5 per game last season. However, his impact with this team is undeniable, and they went 29-17 in his 46 appearances, which gives them a winning percentage of 63%. Additionally, he's giving you production that not many other guys in the league are giving you, averaging 24, 9, and 5. He's a walking double double, and beyond that, he's a legitimately talented interior scoring threat, which is something that the Knicks are going to need because they don't have a lot of size on the perimeter. They don't have a lot of physicality as well, especially again with Mitchell Robinson being out. Now, the rest of the team is we know they got a bunch of dogs on this team. Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, another year of Deuce McBride as well. But that addition of Mikal Bridges is going to pay massive dividends for them because Bridges fits so perfectly into what Tom Thibodeau wants to do, and he is going to further command attention because even though he is not going to be a primary scoring option with this team, he does have that potential. This is a guy who can give you 18, 19, 21 points per game if given the appropriate volume. As we saw with the Nets, he can't be the number one on a team that wants to contend, but he can have the offense flow through him at times. Additionally, his floor spacing, his ability to find the openings in the defense as a cutter, moving around screens, it just adds such a dynamic to an offense that became very Brunson centric later on in the season and all throughout the playoffs. Obviously, when you reach that level of the season, you want your best player to command this load offensively, but it does become stagnant and it does become easier for defenses to game plan against you when your offense is built around one player. You now have a legitimate playmaker away from the ball, and the defense has to respect him. They have to respect that he can shoot 38% from three. They have to respect that he is someone who Jalen Brunson can find coming off of the pick and roll. These things are going to dictate the minutia of the defense. It's going to dictate help. It's going to dictate where the help comes from. It's going to dictate the amount of help. You combine that with Josh Hart, you combine that with Dante DiVincenzo, and this is an offense that has the potential to be one of the most not only efficient but also voluminous offenses. Now, as we know, the Knicks do not put a lot of points on the board just because of Tom Thibodeau and his coaching style. They ranked 30th in pace last season and 19th in points per game scored. However, thanks to the emergence of Jalen Brunson as a legitimate superstar, they were seventh in offensive efficiency, and now they can very well be like the fourth or fifth most efficient offense in the NBA, thanks to Mikal Bridges, and now thanks to Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart not having to help out as much on offense and stretch themselves and potentially put themselves in situations that they're not used to being in. It was something that they fared well in last year, but you don't want to put your you don't want to stretch your role players too thin. And now Mikal Bridges he's gonna just, he fits so perfectly in this offense. I know they overpaid for him with 5 first-round draft picks or, 5 picks worth of compensation, but that is the kind of haul that you have to give when you're on the cusp of being a championship contender. And if they do win a championship, whether it's this year or the year after, it's not going to be a discussion of whether they overpaid or not because they'll be marching in Midtown celebrating the first title that they've had in like what, 50 years, 52 years. Before we close out, I don't want this to get lost on anybody. The Knicks are now, at least to me, going to be one of, if not the best defensive teams in the NBA. They were around that mark last year, but I don't think they were, at least in terms of efficiency, I should say they were the 10th most efficient defense last season, which is fine, but I don't think that being 10th in defensive efficiency is championship level. You have to get within the top 7, I believe. And Mikal Bridges, again, just a huge addition for them, provides so much versatility on that end. He can legitimately guard 4 positions, potentially even 5, depending on how small the opposing team goes. I don't envision that being too frequent because I can already envision opposing coaches going bigger intentionally, knowing that Mitchell Robinson is not going to be with the team for the first 2 months, and knowing that Jericho Sims has not had the most consistent abilities on the floor. But still, the interchangeability, the versatility, the switchability of this team is off the charts. Off the charts. They're able to conceal Jalen Brunson. They're able to hide Julius Randle as well, who is maybe not as bad of a defender as some people may believe, but is definitely not a stopper in any regard. He is serviceable. However, with the rest of this team, they are going to be disguised properly, and they're also not going to have to worry about extending themselves too much defensively, and they will be able to focus exclusively on playmaking, shot creation. But the defensive wing trio of Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and Mikal Bridges is more than enough to contend with the elite teams in the Eastern Conference, and even with the elite teams overall. If we extrapolate out and we see the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics, those three, they're going to be able to defend Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. And I'm forgetting OG Anunoby. I can't believe I forgot to talk about him after they just. Okay, wow, I fell off. Honestly, I fell off. And yes, this is also with OG Anunoby, who they paid big money for, but again, a guy who contributes to winning more so than the numbers can tell. And even as an offensive player, I mean, what he was doing for them last year to help Jalen Brunson, he like him and Josh Hart taking turns giving 18, 19, 20 points, but his ability to defend is probably their biggest key to success because he is going to be the guy who defends Tatum. He is going to be the guy who defends Paul George. If they go to the finals and they see Oklahoma City, for example, he's going to be the guy that defends SGA, and that is an all defensive caliber guy that you have on the perimeter. But what makes the Knicks even more lethal is that they're able to throw not only OG at Jason Tatum, for example, but also Mikal Bridges and also Josh Hart. And it is just like a perfectly constructed roster. Like the only hole that this team has is at the center position, like I talked about at the top. But that's not really gonna. I don't think that is as big of an issue. I really don't think it's that big of an issue, especially since, at least as of this point, Robinson will be returning later on in the season, which is when it's going to matter more. That's when the seeding races are going to heat up. That's when everything gets tighter. Pre Christmas, if you're going to miss games, before Christmas is the appropriate time because everyone is going to feel themselves out. There was a lot of turnover this offseason. There were a lot of big names going to new places, not even names like Paul George and Isaiah Hartenstein, but also a guy like Kentavious Caldwell Pope going to the Orlando Magic. Like little things like that, moves that are going to make good teams great and great teams excellent. I do also quickly want to touch on the signing of Cameron Payne because I think it's going to be one of the more consequential signings for the Knicks this offseason. Cameron Payne is a very good, very reliable backup point guard, and there are few positions more valuable than backup point guard because you need someone who you can trust to come off the bench and keep things chugging along while your superstar is getting his much deserved rest. Someone who can facilitate the offense, someone who is a smart decision maker, someone who is not careless with the basketball, someone who can maintain that calming presence for the offense and also assist guys like Julius Randle and Mikal Bridges. Cameron Payne does all of this. He was one of the better backup point guards on the market, and getting him for just a shade over $2 million is huge. Additionally, he's proven that he's comfortable and can be successful in this role. He's done it over the last couple of years with a few high level teams, and above all else, he shoots close to 40% from three. In the realm of players who could have filled this role, there really weren't many out there this summer. And again, being able to get him for the league minimum, it's a bargain. I am expecting big things from the Knicks this season. I think that this is a very exciting time to be a Knicks fan. I may not be a Knicks fan myself, but living in New York, living in Southern New York, especially, you are so wrapped into the Knicks sphere. You are like hyper aware of everything that's going on with this organization, and just being a basketball fan for as long as I have been, I've seen all of the bad iterations of this team. I saw, when they had Alexei Shved. I remember when Landry Fields was on this team. I remember Shane Larkin. And then I remember when Carmelo came to New York. This is the Knicks' first legitimate shot at a title in probably, like, I don't want to say 25 years because I don't want to downplay the Melo and Stat time with the Knicks. However, I don't know if it was ever legitimate with LeBron in the Eastern Conference. This is going to be a very, very interesting and very exciting season for the New York Knicks. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. Thank you guys so very much for coming to hang out with me today. As always, everything I'm associated with is down in the description box below: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Drop a comment as well. It really helps out with the algorithm. If you do any of those three things, you will become my new favorite person. And with that, I will see y'all in the next one.